Rush Limbaugh passes away, and Ron DeSantis talks about what Florida did right, and Biden's town hall was a complete disaster. I'll be getting into that and more on The William Hall Show. All right, I have a very important show for you today. Rush Limbaugh has passed away from lung cancer. This happened just yesterday, Wednesday, February 17th. And he had learned that he had lung cancer, stage 4 lung cancer, in January last year, and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Trump at the State of the Union address as well, just a few days after he had figured out that information. So, very, very sad news. Rush Limbaugh was a very iconic figure for the entire conservative movement, but not just the movement, but just the entire way in which Middle America was viewed during that time several years ago. So this is incredibly sad news. And although I just got into politics a couple of years ago, it really is he had a massive influence on many people. And it will be very sad to see just the change of the landscape for conservatives now. So, as I mentioned, Trump awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom at the State of the Union last year. And for those that may not have known about that or just forgot about what that looked like, here's a bit of that now.
Almost every American family knows the pain when a loved one is diagnosed with a serious illness. Here tonight is a special man, beloved by millions of Americans, who just received a stage 4 advanced cancer diagnosis. This is not good news, but what is good news is that he is the greatest fighter and winner that you will ever meet. Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country.
So obviously, Limbaugh was considered as one of the, if not the most important, conservative media figures of our time. And for a very good reason. He started the Rush Limbaugh Show in 1988, and the program actually began 33 years ago on a national syndication. With only about 56 radio stations, grew to be the most listened to radio station and show in the United States, airing on more than 600 stations, according to the show's website, and up to about 27 million people tuned in on a weekly basis. So those are ridiculously high numbers. If you have anything to compare that to, trust me, there's nobody out there as far as a conservative figure is concerned. I mean, we're talking even Fox News is struggling to get numbers like that has that kind of an influence over that's a conservative influencer at all. And many people were influenced by everything that he said. He had a massive amount of sway in the minds of middle America. And when I'm saying middle America, I'm talking about the working individuals, the people that were forgotten by the California and New York elites. They weren't speaking to these people in the average everyday working American. They weren't talking to those people at all. But Rush Limbaugh was. And so it's a massive loss to see a person like him go. Of course, he knew that this was going to be happening. And honestly, with stage 4 lung cancer, it's a massive surprise that he held out this long. It just really goes to show how much of a strong individual that he was during his time. But in his final radio broadcast, Limbaugh thanked his listeners and supporters, revealing at the time that he had outlived his prognosis. He said, quote, "I wasn't expected to be alive today." He said, "I wasn't expected to make it to October, and then to November, and then to December. And yet here I am. And today, got some problems, but I'm feeling pretty good today." See, the thing is that Limbaugh believed in American exceptionalism. this idea that us as Americans, we shouldn't be frowning upon our past and frowning upon the things that America stands for. Even though America has not always been the country that we've wanted it to be, we should be proud Americans at all times, regardless of that. And those conservative views really took him to get that message out there. It took him to instill that in the minds of people around the globe. And he also said that we stood for the concepts that in our Declaration of Independence, the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, we stood for that. And we were the beacon for it. And to this day, that is why the oppressed of the world still seek to come into this country, he said, which is incredibly correct. People still are trying to, in droves, trying to get to this country. And he talked about how exceptional this country is, because it is something to be proud of. Another report that came out today about a country music star named John Rich, and he revealed a secret act of charity, apparently, that Rush Limbaugh was able to do. And he said, quote, "When I was on The Celebrity Apprentice, Rush Limbaugh made a donation of $100,000 to St. Jude Children's Hospital to support them and my mission on the TV show under the condition that he remained anonymous. I never said a word until now. He will be missed." And so just highlighting the generosity from somebody like this, somebody that wasn't looking to be this big name that everybody kind of knew about, and look at what I did, look at how I donated to this and that and the other, but just truly a kind and generous act. And apparently there's many of them where he would go to restaurants and tip thousands and thousands of dollars, but just a kind-hearted guy, not a perfect person. Of course, nobody's a perfect person, but still somebody that will be sorely missed. So, of course, you had Twitter and all of the, once again, radical left-wing people on Twitter going on and trying to make a mockery of this entire situation. This is nothing new. Of course they did it. I mean, I could have predicted that this was going to happen. Anyone that's been paying attention to how Democrats have behaved during these types of events could have predicted how they would have behaved with this. But they had rest in piss basically trending on Twitter, which is a disgrace, of course. And the fact is that all this proves once again is that the hatred for the other side, or the hatred for people that disagree with you in some way, exists only on the left. Listen, when Trump was chiming in about the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he said nothing evil about her whatsoever. He said she was a great woman. Why is it that the Democrats don't have that same level of respect regardless? Like, there's the one time that you just don't speak evil of the people that are on the opposite side of it, or of a different opinion than you are. And it's when they die. And of course they can't let up regardless of what happens. So with all of that being said, rest in peace, Mr. Limbaugh. You will be missed. So Ron DeSantis responded to a report about Andrew Cuomo being under investigation about the nursing home deaths.
We have less coronavirus per capita in terms of deaths than the national average. And we have the second oldest population in the United States. We have less cases per capita than the national average. And yet we have all schools open. We have all businesses able to operate. Everyone has a right to work. Our unemployment's below the national average. Our tax revenue is much higher than expectations. And so I think what we've learned is two things. One, when you deal with a pandemic, it doesn't mean that every other issue in society simply goes away. You have to deal with folks' ability to earn a living, to educate their kids, and mental health and well-being. But what we've also learned is these lockdowns on their own just don't work. Even if you didn't care about economy, even if you didn't care about education, they don't work to stop the spread. And I think the results in Florida and elsewhere show that. People want to come here because they know we're a free state. And I think that the facts have borne us out to have made the right decisions. Well, if you go back to March, I was getting criticized for not closing the beaches, which you don't close beaches for a respiratory virus. So I was right on that. But the media totally ignored how the governors were handling the nursing homes. We did an order right at the beginning saying hospitals cannot discharge COVID-positive nursing home residents back to nursing homes. By doing that, we saved hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. And so we made the right decision at the outset. And again, the facts have borne us out over these many months.
So all of what he said there is 100% correct. We're talking about somebody like Ron DeSantis who has actually done a phenomenal job in Florida. And of course, Democrats don't want to admit that to be the case. They'll have the trending hashtag #DeathSantis basically trending on Twitter. Of course, that's how they're going to do that. But the fact is that people are coming here for a reason. I reported on the last show that people from New York are doing everything they can to come to Florida. They wouldn't be coming here if these policies were horribly bad. It's clear that people want to work. It's clear that people want their kids in school. It's clear that they want us to be, or they want to be able to live their lives freely, regardless of the circumstances that are going on right now. And DeSantis is the one that's allowing that to happen. Remember, they attacked Ron DeSantis for months during this. I mean, they were trying to paint him out to be the literal devil when it came down to the way that he responded to the COVID-19 lockdowns and whatnot and everything else under his policies. Meanwhile, Cuomo, he was winning awards. He was on TV all the time. People were taking whatever he was saying at face value and saying this guy did a great job. That's how they were treating Cuomo. And of course, now that Trump's out of office and we've got more data on the cases and everything, they're attacking Cuomo. I mean, they're basically eating their own finally now. It's a little late for that, of course, but that's the way that they've always done that. The Democrats never want to actually look at what's happening on their own side until, of course, they have everything kind of their way, and then all of a sudden they want Cuomo out of office all of a sudden. So just kind of weird how they wait till the last moment to actually do something about it. But DeSantis went on and basically was saying that we've learned from these lockdowns that on their own, they just don't work. Even if you don't care about the economy, even if you didn't care about education, they don't work to stop the spread. And I think that the results in Florida and elsewhere show that people want to come here because they know we're a free state. And I think that the facts have borne us out that we have made the right decisions. Of course, he is correct here. Florida has done it right. And I don't care what they want to say, how they want to smear us. And either way, the places with the worst deaths is New York, New Jersey, California, Michigan. These are liberal places. They are Democrat run. That's why they have the worst cases, because their policies are terrible and the lockdowns have not helped them whatsoever. They have not done what they needed to do. And you're going to see more and more of these cases where you're going to see the failures of these Democrat governors that just didn't do the right job and yet have the worst economies as well to boot. Kamala Harris was asked about schools, the schools and the idea of reopening these schools. Of course, schools should be open at this point in time. We know that kids are not at a massive danger or risk to COVID-19, but yet Kamala Harris was asked this question pretty much up front. What are you going to do about these schools? And here was her response.
There has been a shifting timeline here. Back on December 8th, the then president-elect tweeted, we want to reopen the majority of schools in the first 100 days. He later said that day, we want to have most schools open. Now he said as recently as last night, he's talking about the majority of K through 8 schools. Last week, we heard a White House official saying open means it could mean just 1 day a week open. The president said, no, that was a miscommunication. But I mean, I guess, look, again, parents watching, what is the bottom line? What does it mean for schools to be reopened? And how soon can they be reopened?
So our goal is that as many K through 8 schools as possible will reopen within the first 100 days. Our goal is that it will be 5 days a week. And so we have to work to achieve that goal. But our goal is the goal of parents. And I mean, here's the thing, Savannah, I don't need to tell you. We are the issue here is not just about statistics. It's about our kids. It's about their parents. It's about the fact that every day our kids are missing essential, critical days in their educational development. We know, we have worked on this issue for years around the fact that, by the end of third grade, if a child is not at third grade reading level, they literally drop off. So each day in the life of a child is a very long time.
Absolutely.
And that's why, and that's why we've got to collectively do everything in our power to reopen our schools as quickly as possible and as safely as possible.
A lot of public health officials will say this closing of schools is as much of a public health crisis for all the reasons you mentioned.
So as expected, once again, Kamala Harris doesn't answer questions at all. She really doesn't. When faced with any type of question that she doesn't have a good answer to, you'll hear her kind of do the, no. We're kids are important, right? That's what she does. She did this during the debate with Pence. She did this with all the other situations that whenever she's faced with any type of situation, she doesn't have a good answer for it. That's what she does. She either laughs it off or kind of stammers a ton, really giving a non-answer, talking about the importance of kids and schools, but doesn't answer the question. What are you actually going to do? Are you going to allow for people to open up their schools, allow kids to go to school? No, of course she doesn't want to answer that question whatsoever. Now, keep in mind, all Republican areas have had schools open. Florida, for example, we've had schools open. Kids have been going. Trust me, if kids were dying off like crazy because of this, if the cases were rising in schools like crazy, if teachers were getting sick en masse, you would be hearing about that nonstop in the news. You would be. You wouldn't be able to not hear about that. Trust me. But you haven't heard those reports because they haven't been happening. The reality is that the schools should be open regardless. And the fact that she's dancing around this topic tells you that she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's going to continue to just kind of laugh these types of subjects off, meanwhile leaving everything closed because she doesn't have an answer for any of this stuff. Kamala Harris is one of the worst, if not the worst, I think, vice president we've ever had in the United States in all of history because she doesn't do anything. She kind of just dances around these subjects and just stammers and just laughs. That's really all this is, while pretending to care about the issues. Nothing has changed with Kamala Harris, and we predicted this happening already. This is why she lost very badly, by the way, in the primaries for president, because she didn't take anything seriously. Every time that she was asked a serious question, it was always this kind of voice that we're trying to help out the schools and we really care about the kids, but she doesn't answer anything about what's actually happening. And honestly, Joe Biden's not much better, which I'll be getting into in a second. But first, just a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon. Also, remember to like the channel or like the video, subscribe to the channel as well if you are watching this on video. And if you're watching this on the podcast, please leave a rating as that helps out the metrics also. So Joe Biden did a town hall a couple of days ago, and of course there were a ton of gaffes. I mean, when Biden is off the script, it's really bad, really bad. So he was asked a question about minorities and about the vaccine and getting the vaccine to them. And this was his response.
The other portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination at the Walgreens or at the particular store.
There you have it. I don't really have a good response to that clip, to be honest with you. I really don't. This is bad. This is the president of the United States here. That's his best explanation for all of that. Honestly, this to me just proves that when you have people in the White House that are only concerned about race, everything that they say when they're trying to pander to it, especially from an old guy like Joe Biden, sounds racist. It really does. It's bad. Most people are just concerned about the vaccine by itself. That's it. They're not worried or thinking about this through the prism of race. I made a post on Parler recently basically saying that the fact that Democrats view everything through the prism of race shows that they are truly the racist. They can't just leave well enough alone. It's this soft bigotry of low expectations. That's what you're seeing here. Oh, well, they're poor and black, and if my math is right, based off of the wokeism, that means that they don't know how to use the internet. That's what we've kind of borne all of this down to at this point. There are many more clips like this, and there's going to be many more clips like this because you're going to see a lot more of Biden trying to be woke and trying to say these things. I mean, this is the same guy, by the way, that was making the claim and was on this show with whoever it was. I can't remember the guy's name, but basically he made the statement that if you don't know if you're voting for me or Trump, then you ain't black. That's the guy that we're talking about here. Now, Joe Biden is a person that back in his history was not for any of this woke stuff. There was actually a report coming out from Jen Psaki where she was talking about the reparations. Somebody was asking her about that. And basically she said that Biden was going to do as much as he could to look into that. And that they were going to have a study and the Senate was going to vote on this study and try to figure out if reparations makes any sense. Of course, the actual thought and idea behind reparations has never been clear. That's the biggest problem with reparations, right? I mean, who really gets this money? Is it half black people, quarter black people, fully black people? Okay, well, do your ancestors actually have to have been slaves? Or, and if they were or do, how do you prove that? Like, how do you legitimately prove that? I mean, you're going to have people lying about that all the time. And on top of that, what's this money going to do? I think if anything, the COVID stimulus money and checks have really proven that, I mean, in a way, the COVID-19 checks have been a type of reparations. It's been a type of reparations because the government's saying, we made a mistake, or it's our fault that you can't work because we have locked you down. We've kept you from being able to run your business. We've kept you from being able to have a job. And because we are the ones that chose to do that, we're going to give you some money in the form of what we're saying is a stimulus to help you out, to kind of as a sorry response to everything that we've done and told you that you can't do. Is that kind of not what reparations are? They're taking on the responsibility of slavery and saying we're going to pay black people, and even though we can't really quantify exactly who counts under that, we're going to pay you a certain amount of money to try and say sorry for what we did. Let me ask you something. How are those reparations or how are those stimulus checks really working out for you? Did they last you a long time? Did it make up for you not being able to have a job if you lost your job? Because I can tell you one thing right now, it didn't help me. I mean, I kept my job, but it didn't help me much of anything at all. And those were billions of dollars being spent into that. Why are we even having this reparations discussion in 2020 or 2021 is beyond me. This is not the thing that we should be concerned about at all. And if anybody has been able to see the failure of how government can't solve problems that it creates, how in the world do they think that this is going to do anything? Let's just say, for example, which is of course never going to happen, but let's just say every black person that had an ancestor that suffered from slavery gets a $10,000 check. How do you think that's going to help anything? You think that's going to last? Billions, trillions of dollars to pay for 13% of the population that we can't even really quantify or wrap our heads around. Somehow that's going to really make up for the difference. They're always going to say it's not enough. They're always going to have something else that they want. The biggest thing that we can do is just say, we've created a system, which America has done, that allows for anybody to be successful. Have at it. You just need to work hard to get there. That's what it should be. But of course, Democrats, they don't want to look at any of that. I don't even know what the study is even supposed to be looking into. No idea. So many of you, if you're Christians, maybe even if you're not, have heard of the guy named Ravi Zacharias. He was a evangelist, did a lot of great work, and although I just recently found out about him, probably middle of last year, shortly after, of course, he died at the age of 74. He was a major influence on just kind of people around the world coming to Christ. Well, unfortunately, there was some reports coming out about some pretty disturbing charges and accusations about him recently. So there were about 50 people that were interviewed, and this was all based off of an investigation from the law firm Miller and Martin, which was actually commissioned by his own ministries organization. But they're included and found from the results of this that more than a dozen massage therapists in about a 12-page, and this was all in a 12-page report, had come out and made some pretty bad accusations about sexual abuse, numerous extramarital relationships, some pretty bad stuff here. So investigators covered a text and email-based relationships with women who were not his wife, along with more than about 200 photos of women on his devices as well. They also found allegations of spiritual abuse and other sexual misdeeds also. So most of these seem to be true based off of the evidence, especially considering that it was his own organization that did this, or at least commissioned this law firm to even investigate these things in the first place. Now, of course, you're going to have a bunch of different, and we already have had a bunch of different ministers and other evangelists come out and condemn him in every way possible. Now, the man's already dead. We have no idea whether he repented before he died, no idea. But we have to be careful when we're sitting here judging somebody like this at this level. I mean, a lot of evangelists have actually even straight up said this guy is satanic. Of course, sin is a sin. There's nothing saying that we shouldn't look at that in that way. Of course it is. But once again, we are all fallen creatures from God. And there's only one person who lived his life completely without sin, and that's Jesus. So in this time, we're going to pray and should pray for his family, for the people that are involved in the ministry that he was a part of, and for ourselves so that we don't fall into the same type of temptation. At this point, there's no point in trying to ruin what this man accomplished, even though there are many things that he did that are clearly sinful. So with that being said, we must move on. We must move on to bigger and better things with the way that things are going right now. And things like this are never a good thing, of course. Definitely not a good thing at all. And it's very disappointing for me, especially somebody that recently found out about him last year. Very disappointing. So with that being said, that's all I have for you today. I thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. You just watched an episode from The William Hall Show. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.